Joined now by Benjamin Creutzfeldt. He's with the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. He specializes in China, Latin America, U.S. affairs. Editorial in today's China Daily reads, and I'll just read a snippet of it. The agreement between China and the United States not to engage in a trade war will have everyone heaving a huge sigh of relief, except for the belligerent hawks in the U.S., which kind of spells out not just the fact that you have two of the largest economies negotiating, but you've also got this internal debate going on between the hawks, who are really favoring coming down hard on China, and the more pragmatic side. It appears maybe the pragmatists won out. Talk to me about what went on here, and how do we arrive where we are today?
Well, interesting, there's still not one single line, is there, as you rightly described. There are different opinions on also who to protect in all this. That's what's fascinating, and not only reading the US side, but also the Chinese side. You see in the US reporting on the lobbying groups, on manufacturers needing to defend their interests, and in China, we just heard it again, and People's Daily says the same thing. It's a very coherent line over there, saying our consumers want more on offer, they want to buy more goods of all kinds. Great, that coincides with the US interests to sell more. The question is exactly what sort of goods, and that's where then you get into difficulty. Is it farming goods, or the US is more worried about technology transfer to China, and then China probably would really like to buy more US advanced technology, and that would more easily address the issue of reducing the trade deficit, whereas you can buy a hell of a lot of soybeans, but it's not going to easily chip away at that big imbalance.
What do you think was the turning point here? Was it the fact that Liu He came, that there's a sit down, because things did not go well in Beijing?
There is an element that a lot of this is political. We all know that there will hopefully be a Kim-Trump summit quite soon, and the Chinese certainly have a lot in play in that negotiation. So, and so does President Trump. So clearly there is an interest in everybody being, at least the word truce was mentioned, having sort of a quiet time for now. And so I think that plays a role as well, the political issue. Trump also wanting, of course, to have something easy to show. So, it's 150 billion of threatened tariffs, then 200 billion, a slightly larger number of increased sales to China. So I think all these things are sort of moments that they're trying to put forward, and the details are still not at all clear and are still being hammered out, and will be for many weeks and months to come.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, but before I do, this thought of China increasing its imports of U.S. goods, I read it in at least two publications last week that even if all the manufacturing sites in the United States were humming at 24 hours a day, they couldn't have the capacity to deliver where you would actually reduce this 200 billion. So it just almost seemed absurd throwing that number out. We've got to handle this when the United States isn't really capable of dealing with it, right?
It's easy to throw those numbers out, isn't it? And I must have read the same sources as yourself. Again, I go back to what exactly is under negotiation. As long as you just have these numbers, that's one thing. All the media, of course, it's easy to make headlines with that, and it's easy for President Trump to tweet with that. But $200 billion in increased sales, that's a lot, and that would be, a question of what sort of widgets, what commodities, what goods, and if it's value-added goods, there's a thing that China has wanted in the past. They were very interested in buying military hardware. It's out of the question under the current sort of sense of competition that would feature, but there's all sorts of other goods that China would be very interested in acquiring. So in some way, blocking ZTE from buying certain goods for very valid reasons, but trying to increase sales to China is a contradiction. And so you have a number of things that need to be resolved, and it's true. I mean, the US doesn't have the sufficient productive capacity in certain areas, but it does in some. But they're the sticky ones that the US want to protect. So it's going to be very difficult, and only time will tell. 200 billion is a promise, or it's a pledge over a year. We'll have to sit down again and analyze it.
Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross heading to China next week. This is where you get into the nitty-gritty. Do you really expect anything to come of that right away, or? kick the can down the road a bit?
I think it'll be kicking the can down the road, but also approaching the summit or postponed summit with Kim Jong-un will play out as well in the background of that. And really what's interesting is how intricately related, how intricately interlinked the US and Chinese economies are going forward, that will make it almost impossible to sort of completely break. It's like a very solid marriage, but you just have to negotiate little differences and try and iron them out.
All marriages have little spats along the way, and this is one of them. Benjamin, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.